Hello, I am Manjit Roy, Legal Advisor at Lease. Today I have with me John Gargan, Consultant and Mediator, who has 35 years experience in housing, including over 25 years as a Senior Manager in Leasehold Services within local authority housing. Today we will talk about the changes in legislation concerning right to buy in England. Hi John.
Hi Manjit.
Hi. Okay. I'm renting a flat from a council in central London, John, and I would like to exercise the right to buy and become a leaseholder. Firstly, can you tell me what I would need to be able to qualify and how I will know if I have the right to buy?
Okay, you will probably have the right to buy if you're a secure council tenant and have spent at least 3 years as a public sector tenant. The 3 years doesn't have to be continuous, and you can add together any time you have spent as a public sector tenant. A public sector tenant is someone whose landlord is a public body, such as a council, a housing association, or a government department. You'll only be able to purchase under the scheme if your house or flat is your only or principal home and is self-contained. You may be able to exercise the right to buy jointly with members of your family who have lived with you for the past 12 months, or with someone who is a joint tenant with you. You may not be able to exercise the right to buy if you have legal issues with debt or any outstanding possession orders. It's important to note that some properties are exempt from the right to buy, so you should check this with your landlord. And I should say it's also in the government booklet on right to buy, a list of exempt properties. To apply for the right to buy, you will need to request and complete a notice claiming the right to buy, which is commonly known as a RTB1 form, and send it to your landlord.
Okay, I've heard that there's a qualifying period that has changed. What does this mean?
The right to buy scheme was introduced in 1980, and it's designed to help council tenants in England buy their home at a discount. The eligibility criterion for right to buy was recently reduced from 5 years public sector tenancy to 3 years, which is what it was some years ago before it was increased to 5.
Okay, so what will happen after I submit my application? Do I need to be aware of any time limits?
Yes, once your landlord receives your application form, they will carry out eligibility checks on your tenancy, etc., and notify you if you have the right to buy your home. They should notify you within 4 weeks of receiving your application form, although that's 8 weeks if any of your qualifying period is with another landlord. Then your landlord will have up to 8 weeks to send you an offer notice if you live in a house, or if it's a flat it will be 12 weeks. The offer notice should set out the valuation of the property, any structural issues and any terms or conditions. Notice should also set out what's called the reference period, which is the 5 years beginning not more than 6 months after the date of the Section 125 notice. It will include your estimated service charge contributions for service charges, maintenance, insurance, management, etc., and any itemised or non-itemised works estimated for repairs or improvement within the reference period. Itemised works are commonly known as major work. Itemised works are commonly known as major works, and they include things such as windows, roofs and such major items.
Okay, and what if I don't agree with the valuation? Can I challenge how much the landlord wants for me to purchase my home?
Yes, if you feel that the value of the home is too high, then you have a right to an independent valuation from the district valuer, who is an agency of the government and independent from your landlord. Within 3 months of receiving the Section 125 notice, you should tell your landlord you would like to have a determination of the value carried out. It's important to note, though, that the district valuer's valuation is the one that will count, even if it is higher than your landlord's valuation. A review of the district valuation can only be requested if there's been a significant factual error in the determination of the district valuation. For example, if they haven't taken into account any representations made by you or your landlord, but generally the district valuation determination is final.
Right, okay. And are you able to tell me how much of a discount I might be able to get?
Yes, the discount will vary depending on how long you've been a tenant. It can be up to 70% of the value of your flat, or up to 50% of the value of a house, but there is a cash limit. and currently it's 103,900 in London and 77,900 in the rest of the country, in the rest of England. The cash limit does increase annually with inflation.
Okay, and what happens after that? How am I able to finance the purchase?
You'll have up to 12 weeks to accept your landlord's offer and arrange a mortgage. In April 2014, the Financial Conduct Authority introduced new rules known as the Mortgage Market Review to ensure that borrowers are only given mortgages they can afford both now and in the future. This means you will not automatically be granted a mortgage on your property.
Right, okay. And I noticed that you mentioned specific timeframes which need to be met. What will happen if either I or my landlord do not or are unable to stick to a deadline?
Both you and your landlord should deal with the right to buy application within the specified timescales, which again are in the government booklet and on their website. There are consequences for not sticking to these. If your landlord delays the process, then you could get a reduction on the sale price, but you have to serve a number of notices which your landlord will then have to respond to. The consequence of you not sticking to the timeframes could result in the withdrawal of your right to buy application. Therefore, it's important for you to inform your landlord in advance of any deadline if you need more time, so that they can consider whether or not to give you an extension, but you are not necessarily entitled to one.
Right, okay. And if all goes well and I obtain a mortgage, what will happen after that?
Once you're happy with all the terms, the sale will be finalised on a date agreed between you and your landlord, which is called the completion date. Your solicitor will then take the mortgage money from your mortgage lender and any additional money which is required to be paid on completion date. This will include costs, VAT, land registry fees and stamp duty, land tax, if any are applicable. Your solicitor will make these payments on your behalf. On the completion date, the sale price and any outstanding rent must have been paid to the landlord. And please note that if your rent account is in arrears on the purchase date, the sale will not complete. Upon completion, your landlord will end your rent account and you will become a homeowner.
Thank you, John. Thank you for answering my questions and helping me to understand the right to buy process. Now, for our listeners, could you give us 3 things that they could take away from today's podcast which you think they would find useful?
Yes, of course. Firstly, read and understand the offer notice. The Section 125 offer notice provides you with many important details, not just the price and valuation, but also the proposed terms of the sale, the estimated service charges, the likely costs of any major repairs or improvements you may be charged for in the first 5 years of your flat. It's important you understand this notice as it advises you of charges you may be liable for in the future and of course gives you notice you should make arrangements to finance those charges. It's also advisable you request your solicitor to take you through this notice. Secondly, read the lease. You should read through the lease carefully to understand what your rights and obligations will be as a leaseholder of the flat. This includes your service charge obligations, whether you'll be required to obtain your landlord's consent for certain things, such as consent to carry out alterations inside your property. Even if you're buying a house, there may be shared services such as water mains, driveways and pathways. And thirdly, understand the outgoings. After you become a homeowner, you will have other outgoings in addition to your mortgage and service charges. So you should be aware of what these are to see if you can afford the purchase. As a homeowner, you will probably have to contribute towards the maintenance of the building, the surrounding area and other services. It's also recommended that you have your own building survey carried out and don't just rely on your lender's valuation survey. Think about the future when your circumstances may change. Bear in mind that house prices and interest rates could go down in future as well as up. Always check any costs up front before signing anything, and if you are not sure, then seek specialist advice.
John, thank you so much for providing us with this information today and being here with us. I hope our listeners have found this podcast useful.
Thank you. I also hope it's been useful.